All right, what is going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Mets Weekly Podcast. We're live at this very moment on YouTube and on X to recap the Mets and Red Sox series, as well as all of the other news and rumors that have been going over the past few days in Mets land. But before we get into that, I want to remind everyone, as we do every single time, to subscribe to the Mets Weekly YouTube channel if you have not already for this very podcast, which is now recorded live Sundays and on Thursdays, depending on how they line up, following every single series of games. For those of you who are watching on playback in the future, you want to join the conversation live, make sure to turn on those post notifications to know when we do go live. And for those of you who are in the live chat right now, watching right now through Twitter or on YouTube, it's better through YouTube. Usually those comments come through every single time. Want to let you guys know we love reading your comments, your questions, your concerns, all of that stuff. And if you feel like you're being ignored, you're not being ignored. They're just being starred throughout the show so we can pull up as many as we can to keep the flow of the conversation going. Also, remember to follow Mets Weekly on Twitter or X and TikTok, which mainly features our guy, Frank About Sports, who is not here today. His Insta reactions every single Mets game, titled The Mets Frankly Postgame. And for our audio listeners, make sure to follow us on all of your favorite listening platforms to not miss the audio version of these episodes that go up at 9 a.m. the following day that they are recorded. So let's get into episode number 80. And this one is going to be quite a joyous one because the Mets have just won 7 straight games. They have swept the Red Sox and the White Sox, so back-to-back sweeps of Sox, different colors. And they are currently just continuing on a roll. Half game out of the wild card race behind Atlanta because Colorado refused to help us out the last 2 games. But we're in a really good spot. They're continuing to win. And all I can say is, even though it's pretty early, we're 5 days into it, 4 games into it, this is how you play September baseball. So let's hope they keep it up.
Yeah, I mean, the finishing up of all the Sox, we slapped the White Sox, we swept. It was slapped and swept together. Swept the Red Sox, swept the White Sox, just cleaning all the Sox, bleach them all, they're all dead. And again, you're getting continued great starting pitching from everyone but a certain person, which we'll get to in a second. The offense is still inconsistent, but it's giving us enough to get the wins, which again is fine where you're still getting the win, but again, you're going against kind of mid-tier to, obviously, the White Sox were not a good team. The Red Sox are, a couple pedestals ahead of the White Sox, obviously, but still not, a playoff team. They're like kind of in the same situation, first team out of the playoffs. But overall, bullpen has been spotless, which again has been a up and down Achilles heel to this team. Bullpen throwing shutout innings in the last game of the series, and again, overall, we're getting contributions. We have an MVP candidate that continues to make his case stronger and stronger. We have a polar bear who continues to show how he is not clutch. And Jesse Winker continues to be the greatest thing since sliced bread. So again, it's a great overall team environment. And hopefully they keep it going because end this month and starting next week, it's a hell from the middle of September to the end. So when you have the ability to play these teams, and the Reds coming up next series is another winnable series. After that, it's hell. So, and you're playing playoff teams every stretch. So to be able to beat non-playoff teams and continue to beat non-playoff teams needs to be the priority.
Yeah, we'll see what happens here because they do need to continue to take advantage of this because there are some signs that have been shown from this Mets team of a lot of inconsistency all year. And listen, I know that it's a long season and you can never really wrap it up in all 162 games. Some are really bad losses. Some are really good losses. Or really good wins. Excuse me. What the hell? No, nothing's a really good loss. I don't know where the hell that came from.
The Ranger mentality. I like that.
Fuck you. But anyways, a big sweep here. They come out on top, and we've had quite a few. We've had quite a few guys stand out. Let's just say that. We all know about Francisco Lindor continuing that MVP campaign. I'm pretty sure he has got on base in 33 consecutive games. He has a 15-game hitting streak, just absolutely on fire right now. And we will actually get into David Stearns' comments regarding Francisco Lindor and the state of this team in a little bit. But I do want to just jump right into this series because there was a lot that went on from just piecing these 9 inning games together, whether it was just an overall massive effort from the bullpen, whether it was just kind of just winning and, scoring in the margins. They just did a lot of it just throughout this entire series. So I do want to just run this completely down. So game 1 of this series, Luis Severino gave us 7 strong innings of 1-run ball and 5 strikeouts. Starling Marte opened the scoring with a grounding into a double play with no outs. Nimmo and Lindor both drove in runs as well. Luis Torrens had a 2-hit game with an RBI. The Mets offense would just go 1 for 8 with runners in scoring position, but it was enough to hold it down. Danny Young and Phil Maton put up a scoreless 8th and 9th to take game 1 4-1. Game 2, David Peterson on his 29th birthday would outdo himself once again. 11 strikeouts and 6 innings pitched, of 1-run ball. Lindor would open the scoring with his 30th home run of the year and drove in another one later on. Vientos would homer in the 7th. Brandon Nimmo would drive in a run on a sacrifice fly, and Alonso would provide more insurance with a 2-run shot. Jose Butto would come on in relief, toss a 1-2-3 7th, but struggled in the 8th. Reed Garrett would come on to stop the bleeding, and Ryan Stanek would finish the game with a 1-2-3 9th to secure the win 7-2. Game 3, Tyler McGill only went 4 innings after being pulled after 67 pitches. Walking just 1 and striking out 3, Jesse Winker would get the scoring started with a grand slam in the 1st inning. Lindor and Vientos would both have multi-hit games. Nimmo would get on base twice as well. The Mets bullpen would induce double plays all night long. Alex Young would toss a scoreless inning. Brazaban and Danny Young would get each would get 4 outs. Maton would struggle a bit, but he did finish the 8th. The Mets would get tons of insurance as Boston's bullpen could absolutely not throw a strike, getting 4th in the bottom of the 8th. Edwin Diaz would finish it off, throwing harder than he has all season to lock down the sweep of Boston, which puts the Mets at 76-64, a half game out of the final wild card spot, winners of 7 straight games and 8 of their last 10. Lots of good to come out of this series. You get into the win column, continue this winning streak, and I hope that we can elevate this even more. Again, like we've said, coming up with a series with Cincinnati and Toronto, but coming from this series alone, I first want to talk about the positives, which I think that it's pretty easy to establish that David Peterson continues to go on quite a bit of a run in this rotation, being quite a rock to the starting row. Don't shake your head on me like you were high on him. Shut the fuck up. Luis Severino gave us another strong campaign as well. He didn't pitch in this series, but Sean Manaea coming up in the next series, who's also been good during this winning streak and also during this second half of the series. The pitching has looked good. The bullpen has been really stellar as well. We know that Lindor has been leading the charge since the time that he was put into that leadoff spot. He has just been incredible. I mean, what else can you actually say about him? Let's just say, as the kids would say, the vibes are great right now. And they're just continuing to play winning baseball. And this is the type of trajectory you want to be on in the months of September. This is the last licks that you get, the final push into the playoffs. And I think that they are doing well so far. Of course, we talked about that end of the month that is going to be really tough. That's going to be the final test. But they are stacking up wins as they can. Hopefully the Rockies can help us out today as the Mets have an off day. It would tie them up with the Braves. They're playing right now as we currently speak. But Andrew, the good takeaways from this series, what did you like? You can also tell me what you disliked. This was quite a series. They got a sweep, back-to-back sweeps of different colors socks.
Yeah, again, it's starting pitching, and you've seen now with the starters going deeper in the game, the bullpen has not been as bad as it was. It's almost like when your starting rotation goes deep into games and you don't have to overwork and overuse their bullpen every night going 4 or 5 innings out of your pen, you get a better version of both. Again, David Peterson continues to be our game 1 starter if the playoffs were to start today. Luis Severino, after that, one shaky start where we're like, okay, this is kind of what we were terrified of back half of the season, has bounced back tremendously. And again, against a team he has had a lot of history with, again, being with the Yankees and having a lot of starts against the Red Sox, had a little concern there, has another great start. Again, Tyler McGill, that's about right. But again, Manai, overall...
What else? I mean, listen, hold on. What else can we really say about Tyler McGill? Like, really? What else? Like you're looking at me with all these smirky faces. You're giving me all these faces. But what else can we really say about Tyler McGill at this point? Like, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'm sorry to just fully... But, like, literally, what else can we really say about Tyler McGill? Does he belong in a big man a big league rotation? No, he just doesn't, right? Does he belong in a bullpen? Maybe. Who knows? No. But here's the problem. They don't have any other choices. Like, what other choice do they have? Don't give me any prospects to plug in right now because they seem to not even trust that. I mean, what other options do they have? Paul Blackburn seems to be coming back, which is good. He's going to be coming back in the Toronto series. So the next time throughout the rotation, I don't know if they move him to the bullpen because, again, I'm not really sure what spot would open up there unless you would finally be willing to let go of Adam Ottavino. Like, what else can you say about Tyler McGill that we haven't already said? Like, actually let me know. What can we say about Tyler McGill that has not been said yet?
I mean, I do have a very bad innuendo that I will not say because you'd be mad at me if I did say it. So I'll leave that. I'll tell you after. But again, I'll do the PG version. It's doing the same thing. It's like going to the ice cream shop and getting vanilla ice cream, vanilla ice cream, vanilla ice cream, vanilla ice cream. Can I get a different flavor? I'd rather see Mike Vassell, even though he sucks. I'd rather see Mike Vassell. I'd rather see, hell, Max Krennic, if you don't want to bring a prospect up. Give me a different flavor.
They still won.
Because of
But they still won.
Because of Jesse Winky.
But they won. We got the win.
Because of Jesse Winky.
We got the win, though. No. That's all that matters. We got the win.
But he's not a win day. But he's not a win day. We usually lose. But overall, I'm tired of this. Can we just try something different? It's just same thing over. You know what you're gonna get. You got a White Sox star where he gave up 2 runs to the White Sox, and that's the best you're gonna get out of him versus the worst team in baseball. That's it. That's the high mark of you're gonna get the rest of the year from Tyler McGill. Can we please? I like vanilla ice cream, but occasionally I want some chocolate. I want some, double fudge. Give me something creative. Enough of Tyler McGill, please. Do us all a favor. Let's try some variety.
I'm just imagining people just clicking on the show and it's just like, I like vanilla ice cream. What the fuck is he talking about?
But
to put it in actual terminology.
Well, I had a different.
But
I'll save it.
I think we already have pretty much had the rundown on Tyler McGill. Like, I feel like that was probably his last start of the season, hopefully, regarding any injuries that happen. With Paul Blackburn coming back into the mix, I don't know if they're going to try for a 6-man rotation, which I wouldn't do because Senga's here. Senga's not here at the current moment. We don't know if he comes back. But Tyler McGill is a topic of discussion as to where, at one point, he's going to be just booted out of the equation completely. And I feel like a lot of people are hoping when that day comes. But I just don't understand what you can really say anymore about him that we don't already know. Like at this point, we know what he's capable of. We know that the first 2 innings or first 3 innings, he's fine. He gives you quality, and then he completely collapses. I was really confused, and one thing that I can say about McGill, I didn't want to make this a complete McGill show, but and we'll move on eventually. But I was very confused as to why they're really just stretching this guy out as a starter when they just pulled the plug completely way before 100 pitches. I mean, you literally should just move him to the bullpen at this point if you're going to do that. And it seems like that's the direction that he's going. But it seems like at this point they have shown no interest of wanting this guy to be a reliever. So I feel like they're just like digging their own grave here, and like you said, just constantly doing the same thing over and over again. You expecting a different result, it's just not going to happen. And even if I want to defend McGill, or even if I do have the soft spot for McGill, I know what's happening on the field. I'm not stupid. The guy has not been able to get through 4 innings. He has not been able to get out of the 5th inning. He has great stuff. He can apply it. And I think we already know at this point what he is capable of. So I really hope that they get a little bit creative as to what they actually do with Tyler McGill as compared to just signing somebody off the street, calling somebody up from the minor leagues who has absolutely no experience when that time comes, because we have had some injury scares in this rotation, not from the guys that we really expected it to come from. We expected Severino to have a lot more scares. He has not had a single one. If you're superstitious, knock on wood. If I jinx something, I apologize. But the problem that I think that we really start to face here is the Mets are really just running out of options. We saw them, squeeze a lot of glue out before they even considered bringing up Christian Scott. Christian Scott gets hurt. Senga is out. So now they need somebody to fill in those innings. And it's not going to be Tyler McGill, because he's not going to give you those innings. He's not going to go deep into the game. We know that he can't go deep into the game. We've seen him go deep in the game before, but we're not able to see any length from him. The Mets had an off day. They were in a position as to where they had the luck to do it. They had a rested bullpen. Didn't get much from McGill. They pulled the plug early, but you're not going to be that lucky every single time. Because we've seen the Mets, like Jose Quintana starts. We've seen it before from Luis Severino. Not recently from Sean Manaea. We've even seen it from David Peterson, where they don't go deep into the game, and they're going to have to go basically destroy the entire bullpen. They were lucky enough that they only needed 4 innings from Tyler McGill, and they're like, okay, enough is enough. Let's use this rested bullpen. They have an off day tomorrow. So are they really willing to put themselves in that position again, guaranteeing that they're going to get length from everybody else? Because once Paul Blackburn comes back, we know that McGill would be the first one to go. But are they even going to utilize McGill in the fact that, okay, is he actually going to do anything consistently at the major league level? Do we expect this guy to even be a part of this organization anymore? Or is he just going to hang out in AAA for the rest of his entire career? So I'm so confused as to how they're actually trying to build up McGill. Do they want him to be stretched out as a starter? Are they trying to get trade value from him? Are they trying to move him to the bullpen? Let him air it out, because we've already heard them just saying, let's trust the fastball, let's trust the cutter, throw velocity. That just sounds like a reliever to me. So I don't know if they're trying to work him towards that, but where you just put him out there every single 5 days and see him as an internal piece, that just doesn't make any sense to me. I don't get it if you're going to stretch him out just for him to pitch sub 70 pitches, pitch 4 innings, and then just take him out after that. That doesn't make any sense to me. What about you? I don't know. I don't get that. I don't understand the reason to have him as a starter after what he has proved that he can handle, which is not much from the starting rotation.
Yeah. Again, we've said, if we watched any episodes of the show, we know my stand. I understand wanting to keep him as a starter because he's more valuable as a starter, as a guy that can give you a couple innings. Because again, with Jose Butto being, I'm not saying he is. I'm saying from the value perspective, it makes more sense because you've taken Jose Butto away from really being a multi. They still give him the multi-inning outings, but you've seen last couple, he's good in the first. Second inning is where he's got some struggles. So if you're going to turn Jose Butto, let's say, into just a 1-inning reliever, if for God reason Tyler McGill's here after Paul Blackburn and they want to put him in the pen, you might as well keep him stretched out because you've seen he can give you 2 to 3 innings, and then it's everything else falls apart. The first 2 innings are okay. So by that method, 2-inning reliever. There you go. But again, with McGill, again, how many more opportunities is he gonna get? This better be he's arbitration eligible. I wouldn't say non-tender him. Not saying that at all.
I mean, he's on pace for it. You
should never non-tender the guy. But again, it's just kind of the wait and see with this. Again, with him, he's gotten so many opportunities. It was now or never. It's just there's nothing there. And we all know he's going to go to Tampa Bay or Seattle and then either become a legit multi-inning reliever, or like they'll give him like the Matt Brash slider, and then he'll be, disgusting. But again, Jeremy Hefner can't develop anything. And besides the point, in New York, it's over. Enough. Let him go play with his brother in Milwaukee. That'll be best for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, there's still, listen, you say that there's nothing there. I disagree from that. But again, I feel like we're talking about this from, a standpoint as to where he just is not a major league starter. And I feel like they're really trying to just stretch this out as much as they can. And it's just not going to work. Like, I feel like at this point, we've really established that, yes, McGill does have the stuff as to where he can be a swing and miss type of pitcher. Yes, he can get strikeouts as compared to some of these guys in the rotation. But I just don't think that he's conditioned to go like deep into games. I just don't against major league hitters. And I feel like at this point, I feel like the best thing for him, if you're going to keep him around, is to just take him out of the starting rotation equation altogether. Like I just don't understand the reason as to why we're still hanging around for him to be a starter on this team. Now, this isn't breaking news, but I'm just going to interject here. The Mets have claimed Jose Azocar off waivers from the Padres and have optioned him to AAA. So there's some breaking news for you guys. Huge. And they have transferred Sean Reed-Foley to the 60-day IL. So most likely, Sean Reed-Foley will not throw a single pitch for the Mets for the rest of the season. And I think we all knew that at that point, it was established that he wasn't going to, but there is your official note that Sean Reed-Foley will not pitch for the Mets this season. And I'm going to try to update that on our board here as Andrew gives you his takeaways from this full-on series as I interrupted him with Tyler McGill. So what did you like from this series as compared to something like Tyler McGill, which was definitely the low light of this one?
Yeah, again, like I said, the bullpen was productive. Again, was it clean in the last game? No, but it threw zeros. Again, in my world, I don't care if it's sexy. I just want you to get the job done. I don't care how good your baseball is. Sorry.
You're good.
I don't care how good your baseball savant page is. If you're giving up runs, I don't really care. If you're, it's just...
See, that's where you're a loser.
No, I like zeros. I like zeros in-game compared to big red circles online. So, again, Danny Young, Hoska Brazadaban, Phil Maton didn't have his greatest stuff. We'll get to Phil. We'll get Phil later in the game, later in the video, show. He didn't have his greatest stuff. Still threw up a zero, which again gave up a couple hits, but got out of it. Edwin Diaz back throwing 101. That's nice. It's nice that seeing that back again because throw it more. I get you like your slider. Trust your damn fastball. Rick Vaughn their ass. Throw the damn fastball. So I'm seeing it back up to 101. Maybe be a great time to see that 101 consistently stay in his repertoire now down the stretch. Offensively,
he's
again,
washed.
He is washed.
His career is over.
The career is over. Again, offensively, you seeing Jesse Winker continues to be productive. Francisco Lindor as well. Alonso. I was literally at work in game 2 when they were tacking on in the 8th inning. After they got the 2 runs, I'm outside. I'm listening to the game. And I'm like, listening to Howie. I'm like, this is where he hits the homer. And as soon as I said it in my head, Howie goes deep to center field. And of course, the garbage time tack on 2-run homer from Alonso. But then when we need him in early in opportunities, he's striking out and then breaking his bat because to show Polar Bear strong, I'm going to snap the bat in half. Jeff McNeil does nothing as always. Mark Vientos continues to be a productive secondary power source, which you like to see. DJ Stewart had a productive day when we were like, why the hell is he in the starting lineup? Starting again, yes, he took over for JD. He had a few hits and got on base a few times in the one game we saw from him. Again, it's just, it's still inconsistent because, again, you saw in the last game, it was the Winker homer, and then they didn't tack on until the Red Sox bullpen did not know how to throw a strike. In game one, game 1, game 2 was Lindor's homer was the only hit they had until they tacked on in the 8th inning. So, hey, if that's the trend of, tacking on in the 8th inning, I'm all for it. But again, you're not seeing any consistency from this offense. It's, again, that hot and cold stretch, which, again, you can get away with against these mediocre to bad teams. And we'll see if they can continue against Cincinnati, who's a little bit better and has a lot of talent. Well, I don't know who's starting for the the Reds, if you're getting their top flight guys or not. But then again, next week you're going up against Philly. That's not going to go, you're not going to be able to do that against a team like Philly or Milwaukee and the Braves. When the bigger series, you need the offense to be a little more consistent. You need Pete Alonso to get his head out of his ass desperately. And, to have that, guy that's supposed to be the franchise, the face, the MVP, the kids love the Polar Bears. He's not been very demure lately in all this season. He's been pretty ass. So, again, you need him to start getting his head out of his ass. JD Martinez, hopefully, he's back for this series because even though he hasn't been amazing.
That just came out that JD Martinez has been reinstated. Changing that as of right now, and DJ Stewart has been optioned.
Back. Good. Because again, yes, he hasn't been amazing, but he's still been in the RBI in those ribby situations. He's still been money. And you need that from your DH position. So, Alvarez, that's an off-season discussion. Yes, am I saying he's a bust? He's washed? No, but this has kind of been a wash year for him. As a second year, as a 21-year-old. I'm not, full on pushing the panic button. I'm hoping it's the injury, but still, it's not great. And Harrison Bader, literally, I think could probably go give me some better ABs than Harrison Bader right now. And Drew Gilbert getting raging hot sucks because you're not going to see him because of obviously Bader, and I don't think they'll pull that situation, especially seeing how Nimmo misplayed some balls in center field in this series. As much as I still think I'm fine with him out there, having Bader's defense out there in center field is still a plus. So for right now, at least the rest of this season, Harrison's probably going to play every day, which, again, as much as we want Drew Gilbert up here, and he's continuing to just pound the baseball down in Syracuse. It's just we're going to be stuck with him the rest of these last 22 games.
Yeah, so for those of you in here, make sure to leave a like on the stream if you have not already. Hit the subscribe button. For those of you who are watching on Twitter and you want to chat with us, head over to our YouTube because Twitter comments don't seem to come through as smoothly as compared to YouTube. So make sure to do that if you're doing that at this current moment. But again, as for this entire series, one kind of concern I just want to put out here, and I don't know if this is something that people were also realizing. Obviously, Brandon Nimmo, with what has really been going on with him since the All-Star break, I think it has been noticeable, especially with him being elevated to the 2 spot, the 3 spot in the lineup as well. I mean, I've always said that I'm not really worried as to what's going to go on with Brandon Nimmo. As of right now, I think that the best thing for them to do is probably lower him in the lineup. Only because they do have such a red-hot Francisco Lindor, who I want them to not pitch around. I want to get him to get a little bit more pitches to hit. And how I also look at it is I'd like to see Mark Vientos take more ABs than somebody like Brandon Nimmo as of right now. I feel like Nimmo and Alonso right now are just like kind of playing tag as to who can kind of slump the most right now, because Pete Alonso has come through better in this second half than he was in the first half, but still it just has not been consistent enough. And then Nimmo has just really been on this just like downward turn as to where he was so hot going into the All Star break. We were looking at putting him in the All Star category. Um, and ever since then, he just has not had it. I feel like if you give him a little bit less ABs, maybe slow it down a little bit, keep him in left field. Like I've said, I don't want him in center field for the rest of the year. I feel like at this point, just let him play the corners, preferably left field, because we all know his arm is not great for right field, and just take advantage of the depth that you have with Bader and Taylor. Marte, I don't want in center field, but Winker as well can play left field or whatever, or right field. That's fine. But I feel like at some point they gotta like limit the load for Brandon Nimmo, because right now he just looks he really like he still shows shades of Brandon Nimmo, but he's just not at that current level that we know he can be as a catalyst for this offense, and I think it's a main concern. Because it's coming from the top of the lineup. And I don't know what's going on with him, whether it's health related, whether it is just mentally related, whether he's just not been there since the All-Star break. But I've just never seen a stretch from this long from Brandon Nimmo where it just doesn't seem like he's going to produce at the level we know Brandon Nimmo can. I don't know what your take is on Brandon Nimmo, but as we continue to go deep into this series and we start to piece things together, because I feel like we do need to establish an official lineup at one point if you're going to get to the playoffs. Like, we can't just continue doing these mix and matches, even though we can platoon a lot of guys in this roster because it's deep enough. But when it comes to guys like Brandon Nimmo, Alonso's not going to move anywhere below the fifth hole or whatever, but moving him down in the lineup, not having him play center field, I feel like right now they need to kind of address this, again, lightly, because I still think that he's an everyday player on this team, but he's just not there. He just is not Brandon Nimmo that we know that he's able to do. So that he's been able and been capable to be able to do for so long for this team. And
Yeah.
I think at one point they have to address it. But again, this is September baseball, so they're kind of just shoving him into the equation. But at one point, I think they got to move him down in the lineup just to get him going somehow.
Yeah, again, and it doesn't help that he's struggling. Obviously, Pete Alonso's a shell of what he is. Harrison Bader can't get a hit. Jeff McNeil's back to being awful. So again, like, yes, this is still a good lineup, but if you're looking right now, you've got 3 out of your 9 spots of guys slumping. You know, you could insert Jesse Winker, yes, but that could be a situation. But then right field, Marte or Tyrone Taylor, and you're taking him out of right field, that means you're putting Tyrone Taylor, who really hasn't played much besides yesterday. It felt like yesterday was the first time I've seen him play in like 2 months since the trade. Obviously, he has, but it felt like you haven't seen him in a minute. I do think moving him down is a idea, but again, like I said, the problem, like, okay, let's drop him down to the 6 hole. So right now you're gonna go what? Nimmo, Bader, McNeil, 6, 7, 8. Alvarez and the 9 spot. Those are right now 4 guys who are slumping. So it's really,
Yeah.
you have to kind of keep them either the 2 or the 3, or you can't bet them clean. Like, it's the problem. Like, right now, yeah, Jake, this team is, again, that's been kind of the problem. The problem has been so inefficient because your bottom half of your lineup's giving you no production, really. Like, Alvarez, besides the walk-off, really hasn't. He's had the occasional RBI hit, once a series, but like, that's it. Bader hasn't gotten a hit since Giants Hard Knocks was out. You got Jeff McNeil again, who was raging hot to start the second half. I don't know where the hell that guy went. Ooh, shocker. That was a month stretch of never coming back again. So you can move him down there, but then you're looking at a really scary and ice cold bottom half. So. And again, if they didn't want to call up, some of their prospects to try to spark them, and you're not taking the defense out of Bader. Alvarez is not going anywhere, obviously. Maybe you can, input Terens a little more, but like, you do drop him down, you do have a bottom half of the lineup of an ice cold team. So I think you kind of have to. I mean, you could put him in the sixth spot, but then you are just kind of risking that, like, just back to back to back to back guys of just not being able to hit right now. So it's either he hits his way out of that two spot, or if you want to try to risk it and kind of make the joke that we've had before, where it's like, oh, the top half of our lineup's really good, and then it's just death after that. So you have to be able to play that line right now. And again, and it's crazy with Nemo because you see games and series where it's like, oh, a couple hits. Oh, this is where he breaks out. And then the next game, he's 0 for 9 with 7 punchies. Like, again, he walked a few, got on base a few times yesterday. So, like, again, you said, oh, maybe he's breaking out. He drew 2 walks. But then, we'll see what happens tomorrow against the Reds. So, it's just that kind of, he's in between because, again, like we always say, we want him to see the more power Nimmo. And I think we have seen obviously more power from him. But maybe did that tweak him a little bit where he's like, now it's in between of, do I want to be that kind of that like 20, 21, 22 McNeil where it's like, do I want to have power? Or am I trying to get back on base? And him hitting the top of the lineup, taking Lindor out from behind him. There is that kind of game that we're playing. But I think you could try moving him, but I think he's kind of needs to stay in that 2 spot and figure it out because you could see him in stretches in games. Once a series, it looks like he's consistent. So if you're giving at least one game a series, we're like, oh, he's a couple hits getting on base a few times. You play that game. It's more of the guys behind him that also need to step it up behind him as well, besides Mark Vientos.
Yeah, and listen, I understand that the Mets kind of want to like find this I mean, because they know who's number one in the lineup right now. We know who's going to be batting first for the rest of the season. I feel like Mark Vientos in the 2 was something that they probably should have tried out a little bit more than they already did. I feel like giving him more ABs as to where he has been a power source in this lineup. They should have put him number 2 in the lineup. JD Martinez is somebody we could also put into that equation, which Ricardo's coming in saying that don't forget JD has not been a world beater either. Yeah, JD has also slowed down recently. He's coming back into this lineup, so I don't know if it's, what we see. I think that slowly but surely Nimmo has been okay. But again, it just still has not been the production that we know that Nimmo is capable of. And the problem that I think we really do start to face with Nimmo in that 2 spot is because I think that it's not just the full-on runners in scoring position opportunities that he gets with guys like Lindor getting on pretty much 3 out of 4 times these days. The problem is that the Mets really need to start getting the run, not just the run producers, but just they need to get a little bit more of the featured power in this lineup, as many ABs as they can. The reason why I say that is because is it possible that the Mets offense has been relying on the home run ball a little bit more in this second half as compared to the first half? Yes, they have been. There's nothing wrong with that, in my opinion. I love the home run ball, and it's the best way to score in this game against high-profile pitching. But if they are going to live and die by that, they need the main power bats to be at the top of the lineup. And right now, that doesn't really include Brandon Nimmo. Nimmo hasn't really been hitting for much power. He's hitting the ball hard still. He's still been somewhat productive, again, like I said, but it's still just has not been a 2-spot type of production, I would say. So the most power needs to get the most ABs. And even though that's continued to be, my setting of everything, right now at the trajectory that this team is going with offense, they need to continue, and I mean they need to continue to live and die by the home run ball. If they're not getting these hits with runners in scoring position, they need to play into that if that's going to happen. And Ricardo coming in with another one Lindor, 2 Vientos, Alonso, Winker, Marte, Nimmo, JD, Jeff, and Alvarez. That would be his preferred lineup. I would switch JD and Marte. That would just be my preference personally, because I still think JD can still be a top part of the order. I don't think I would drop him down that much. But other than that, I mean, that's probably the direction that I would go. Again, I think that there's some decent power protection for Alonso, not to mention Vientos. I mean, what do you think about that possible lineup? I mean, I think that I would probably switch JD and Marte, but that's pretty much all I would do.
Yeah, that would be probably again. Marte is again. I think we're expecting everyone. The fans are expecting more than what he's going to give you. So again, I think if you swap JD with Marte, I think it's fine. Uh, again, at this point, just play the hot hand. So if you're saying if Viento's red hot, maybe you switch. I'd honestly probably switch Winker and Alonso right now because I kind of want to see Jesse make a hit in the first inning, like how he's been consistent wise, putting him in front, and honestly, maybe again, it's playing the matchup, playing who's pitching, but I'm fine with that as a lineup. But again, right now, like you said, you got four guys, 5, 6, 7, and 8, who are not hot right now. So you obviously put your hot hitters in the top of the lineup, but then you're playing the game of okay, you could pitch around the top half and then just go dominate the bottom half of the lineup. So it has its positives because again, you're getting your best hitters, your hottest hitters in the first inning, but then the pitchers can be like, okay, once that first inning's over with, I might have to give up a run or two, or let's say I give up a couple hits, I can get to that bottom half and get through the lineup pretty easily. So it plays both sides, but again, with Lindor at the top, you can take your pick who hits second. If it is Alonso, if you ever get hot, Vientos, Winker. I mean, I wouldn't mind Winker hitting too either because he is a guy that can get on base, like kind of what Nimmo was, where like he's hitting for power, but also can draw you your walks and get ahead for those guys in 3, 4, and 5 spots. So again, it's not a horrible lineup. It's probably what we should probably see on Friday.
It's possible. Again, I don't know how they're going to plug in JD when he comes back tomorrow. We'll see what happens there. I don't think that he's going to get any farther down as compared to 5. Like I feel like 5 is like the biggest, the lowest that he's probably going to end up going. But in regards to Nimmo, I feel like he's still been showing the hitting tools he has. It just has not been consistent, and I feel like one little boost for him at one point to maybe move him down to the lineup, maybe just bring down some of the pressure for him. I don't think it will take long for him to get it back going because we've seen some shades of what Nimmo is able to do in this second half. We haven't seen Brandon Nimmo slump like this before. So I don't think that Nimmo is a liability right now. I just think that at this current moment, he's just not there yet. Like, he's just not where he's supposed to be. And I think that this lineup is deep enough as to where any of these guys can get hot. But this lineup is deep enough as compared to what we've had in the past that you could lower him in the lineup and it won't really hurt that much. And everybody moving up to another spot won't be that big of a, detriment, shall we say, to the offense. I think that the lineup is deep enough to do it. I think that it's time that they probably consider doing it just to get him hot for that big stretch at the end of September. But the thing that I'm really concerned about is what I'm really concerned about is I just don't see this production from Nimmo coming from the 2 spot for the rest of the season if they continue to do this. Because yes, he is in the 2 spot, and yes, we know what Brandon Nimmo has been capable of, but I feel like it's gone on a little bit longer than we expected it to, and I think that now they need to consider dropping him in the lineup just to get him going again. Like, that's got to be your last. I understand that's like a last hurrah for some guys, but they have been willing to be very flexible with this lineup and move guys around. We all know the previous manager definitely wasn't. So they've been experimental. They've been able to move things in and out. Brandon Nimmo, I don't think has batted anywhere below 4 this year. So at one point, if you're going to do some experimenting, if you're going to do some mixing, you got to do it now. At some point, you got to get him in there just to like get that groove back from him of what we know that he's capable of. And I feel like easing off some of the pressure from him is probably the best way to do it. Is it a little too late now? We're in September baseball. Maybe. But he is one of the top guns in this lineup, whether you believe it or not, whether you agree and disagree with Vientos emerging this year, whether you believe in Alonso, that he'll somehow break out offensively, whether JD Martinez is here. Brandon Nimmo is your most consistent piece, and we haven't had that consistent piece. The Mets offense has also not been a consistent piece of production. We have seen them go with peaks and valleys throughout all games. They score in bunches. They've been very inconsistent, but they've been able to put things together for overall team wins. Nimmo is one of those pieces that you just need in the postseason to actually perform. And I'm hoping that he starts it up again. And, I feel like he's right there, but you got to give him a little bit less of an opportunity to help him get a bigger opportunity going forward, if that makes sense. I don't know if that does make sense. I just feel like you got to ease him into it to go back into his Nimmo type of ways, because he's still getting on base, right? He's still hitting the ball hard. We're just not seeing the consistent Brandon Nimmo that we have seen throughout his entire Mets career, and hopefully the Brandon Nimmo that we are going to see for the next 6 years on the contract that he's under. So I don't understand what is going on with him. I've made jokes saying that, I'm just going to ignore it for the sake of delusion. But at one point, we got to figure something out, because it is a clear hole from what we're missing from Brandon Nimmo in that 2 spot, even more as compared to, Alonso. We know what has been going on. JD Martinez, we know that he may be slowing down. But with Nimmo, he came into that second half very hot, and he's really been struggling for multiple months now. I don't know if there's anything you want to add on that, because the problem is that I just don't think that he is going to continue to flow and somehow magically wake up in that 2 spot right now as we continue to go deeper into this season. Because at this point, he is just not really in a good stretch right now, and he's been struggling for a while.
Yeah, and again, we've seen this throughout his whole season, where he was awful with Lindor in April. Then he gets raging hot before the All-Star break, and he was like 4th in F-WARC according to National League outfielders, and now he's back to this post-All-Star break in this funk. Do I think, again, one series could wake him back up? Because like we said, he's still getting on base. Not horrifically. He's still, having his games where he's getting the strikeouts have obviously creeped up throughout the whole year. But again, do I think he can get it out? Let's say he goes against the Reds and let's say he hits like 2 homers and wakes up, and then down the stretch you have Brandon Nimmo. Sure, anything can happen, but again, I think you could try to move him
That's
down.
what I mean. I feel like it would be really quick for him. Like if he were to
I
get it
don't.
together.
Yeah, I think it's just one. He can get one series if he gets right one series, and you've seen him in obviously that one playoff series. The only time he's in there, but like in big games, he's made having the walk-offs against the Braves. Like I do think it's not going to take it could take him 2 to 3 games to get back to being him. It's just right now, it's a funk. So if you're saying he's dropped off, you want to drop in the lineup, sure, but I do think he can be one series away. Unlike a guy like Alonso or some of these guys who struggle and it's like fucking, months to get out of it, Francisco Alvarez this year. I do think it's just because, again, he still had at least a game in every series where he's like been productive. So I do think, again, if he can put that a few games in a row, he can get back to that pre-All-Star break form. It's just, again, can he do it with 22 to go?
Yeah, again, and time is running out, but again, like I said, like if he gets a productive series, which we know that he can get with less ABs, less pressure, less opportunities, at some point I feel like he'll just start feeling it, because we have seen him still make great quality of contact, have good ABs. We saw him draw multiple walks in this series alone with the Red Sox, but the main reason as to why I just have this concern is because I just don't think you're just going to get that balance that that you can get from Brandon Nimmo. And you need those balanced hitters throughout the postseason. You need those balanced hitters, for September baseball. And that's not what we've been getting from Brandon Nimmo. And I think that there's a lot of, I think that there is some concern there. But of course, you still have a lot of performances that are kind of outlanding that right now. The Mets are still winning. There's not really much to pick apart that has been bad. But Nimmo is a big part of this lineup, whether you believe it or not, compared to all the other performers in this lineup who have done well or haven't. I think that, they, again, like they have a deep enough lineup where they can move somebody down, and then somebody can be capable of moving a spot up. There's some that don't. We all know who they are. But I think that at some point they need to get an established lineup towards the end of this series. Excuse me, towards the end of this month, of course, going into a playoff series. If they do get there, again, we're still a half game out. But at one point, they have to establish that. And I just don't know that if they can establish that with Brandon Nimmo struggling the way he is. I feel like at this point he will get on track if you do move him down in the lineup. And Ricardo also coming in here saying, call me crazy, I would call up Drew Gilbert to see what I get offensively from him. The problem with doing this is the Mets right now have 5 outfielders, and there really just isn't room for Drew Gilbert whatsoever, unless you're getting so aggravated with Bader and his recent slump that he's had that you just automatically DFA him. I just don't see any possibility where Drew Gilbert does get the playing time that anybody would establish for a young player that just comes up to the major leagues. Because if top prospects do get called up, they need to play every day. This has been established. They need to play every day, and they need to get their footing in the major leagues. I just don't think that there's really any opportunity for Drew Gilbert to do that, especially from in a playoff race when you don't know what you're going to get from him, past September call-ups, and also in this roster where you just have 5 outfielders in Nimmo, Marte, Taylor, Bader, and Winker right now, where it's deep enough to give you that depth and actual quality guys that can play every single day. I just don't see Drew Gilbert in that equation. Do you? I don't know. Like, I just don't. I don't see that as a possibility right now, unless they make some like really deep change with like Bader, whether he goes to the IL or something. I don't know if he's hurt right now because he hasn't been good recently. Tyrone Taylor, I don't know about his playing time, but we know he's established as the 4th outfielder. I don't see a way that Gilbert gets into this combination without there being a logjam and him just sitting on the bench for like 3 out of 4 games. I don't see it.
Yeah. The only, I guess, thing you could talk about, maybe if, again, you send Reyes, you bring Reyes down, you call him up, and if you're benching JD Martinez and you're making Jesse the DH, that's the only maybe scenario where he can maybe get a game started every couple days. But again, I don't see that.
There's no
like I was
consistency there. It just isn't.
And again, it maybe, again, like you said, you're not going to guarantee anything. Like we were talking about the lineup thing, and then we brought it up. Like I'm like writing it down, like have it here, like I'm thinking, I'm like, what would this look if, let's say, it's Lindor, Ventos, Winker, Alonso, JD Martinez, and then like I have second base and center field empty. I'm like, if you put Alvarez between Acuna and Drew, like part of me in my head is like, what would this lineup look like now? But again, only having 28 spots instead of having a 40-man spot like, the good old days, and I love it as an autograph guy. I loved when it was September and 40 guys would come up. But you could have that more, having those matchups and ideas with having the younger guys. So, unless, again, like Bader's hurt, Taylor doesn't have a minor league option left, so he can't go anywhere. Obviously, You're not moving Nimmo, Marte, or Winker. I guess Reyes is that spot, and, are you just going to have him come up and run and play defense? Like, that's literally what Reyes is here for, instead of a guy like Acuna or something, like one of the bigger prospects, potentially even Gilbert. And you don't want to bring up Gilbert because obviously he had the hamstring injury. Like, come up and run. Like, that would be, kind of worst case scenario. But, again, I would love to, again, he's raging hot. And if you're going to call up prospects, I'd rather you call them up when they're raging hot than, on the valley of going back to the normalcy. But again, there's one, no time, 2, really no roster flexibility for it, unless, again, Bader or, let's say, Nimmo or someone gets hurt. Starling Marte, you just say you got a bad hammy, just go get paid and go back to the Dominican Republic. It'd be great. But no, I would love to see it. I just don't think it's gonna happen until next year, if he's even still here come spring training.
Yeah, and again, I think with the injury to Drew Gilbert this year, he's kind of put himself in the equation for 2025. And the same goes for some of the other younger guys. I mean, that already was established early in the year with Ronnie Mauricio as well for 2025. Of course, with him getting injured before the season even started. I think with the young guys, I don't see really any roster plugins right now or any transactions unless there is some kind of injury emergency or if they lose the depth on the roster. Um, I just don't see a possibility as to where, because I do think that they see DJ Stewart as the bigger option compared to somebody like Drew Gilbert, who, DJ Stewart can play the outfield, not well, but I feel like he's kind of like this, like the 29th man, I guess you're considering right now, because that's what was
Yeah.
brought up for JD Martinez.
And he's already on the 40
So
man again, so you have that.
he's
And
already on the
Drew's
40
not,
man.
and
Drew
Drew's
Gilbert
not.
is not.
So
Yeah. So
and you've already used Sean Reed Foley as a 60 guy. Have they done Beatty 60 day DL or IL? Because that could open up
I
another spot.
I don't think
So
they
if
have.
I mean,
No.
they have Beatty as the guy that they can put on the 60 if they want to open up a 40-man spot. So again, barring
Yeah.
pitcher or an injury, that probably would be the next guy that would be put on the 60 day if they need to get a guy on the 40-man. So again, it's just, and again, 22 to go, barring injury. It's just kind of, yes, we'd love to see it because it seems like, again, he's getting to the everyday, he's hitting a absolute bomb, and like, yeah, we
Yeah.
want that. And Harrison Bader,
Six
again, like I
bombs in
said,
the last 13 games. I mean, he's on fire right now.
but it's just,
AAA.
again, and you just don't want him just sitting on the bench.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I think, we'll see how they dupe out the outfield a little bit as this, season progresses into the off season as well, because there are going to be some questions that are going to be needed to be answered in the outfield. M. Easy coming in, talking about Nimmo in center field, saying he gets terrible reads on balls. I mean, I'm not opposed to Nimmo playing center field. It's just
not the
I
rest.
don't think
Yeah,
just not for the rest of this year.
this
Like
year,
again, I feel like at some point they need to like slow down and get him back into the swing of things. I just don't think center field is going to be the way
yeah,
to do that.
because they did again. He saw center field. Everyone was like, "Oh, he's a great defender in center field last year," which he was. Like he was still great out there. Everyone's like, "Oh, Nemo's perfectly fine after first couple of years playing center field was bad." You take him away, you say, okay, here's Harrison Bader. Now you got to give him the different angle, and he's learned the corner. I guess even though he did play in the minor leagues, going and playing the corners. So again,
I still
think
think
it's
he's fine there. I don't think
yeah,
he's bad. It's just like
the rest of the
he's
you
had
have
a few hiccups
yeah.
this year, yes. But
But
I still
if
think
Bader's
he's,
here, just put him in center. Like
yeah.
if
I mean,
and let's say off season wise, there's two Dominican bashers in the corners. I'm okay leaving Nemo in center field. But again, that's the off-season discussion.
2 OAA in left field, -1 OAA in center field. So,
Well, one Venezuela.
I mean, he's still been serviceable. I mean, it seems like his coming in, he's had quite a
that's always been a problem.
thing.
And that's always been the problem with him is just coming in. That's why we made the joke. Frank always yells about him playing so deep. That's always been kind of the problem with him throughout his whole career.
Well, I mean, Frank doesn't know what he's talking about, but but when it comes to Brandon Nimmo, I feel like again, it's just you need to ease something in, and he's just such a very quick, he's just a very quick guy to like just turn it on and turn it on and just start playing again. And I feel like a move down in the lineup is something that they need to consider at one point. Yeah, you know what, Frank, fuck off. Okay, but anyways,
just out of fucking nowhere.
Frank, you're not on the panel today, so act like it. Okay. But in terms of other good performances, I do want to get into Phil Maton because even though it has been up and down with this trade deadline of guys that you have obviously we have acquired some pitching, the most, let's say, most productive piece that they brought in has been Phil Maton. They acquired him for cash in a trade with Tampa, which I think was a few weeks before the trade deadline. And so far, he has been a very productive arm. Not even very productive. He's been dominant. Like, he has been one of the best relievers on this team for the last few months. And I do want to take a little bit of a dip into what has been going on with Phil Maton. Somebody in the chat said that something about Maton. He's just, I'm trying to find it, but I don't know. I did not. Yeah. Maton throws so easily, as Ken said earlier on in the chat. And I think this definitely goes with kind of how I'm interacting it with Phil Maton. And the best way that I would say it is we always see like this very calm demeanor on his face. And I like to see him as like very calm and collected, a very calm and collected pitcher. He just gets the job done, right? He's able to get strikeouts, able to get swing and miss, produces tons of soft contact. You can see he has only surrendered two barrels in 68 batted ball events out of the Mets bullpen. That is a .2 barrel rate. That's insane. Surrendering a bunch of base runners, coming in these high leverage situations. Of course, we can see, in the top 25% in exit velocity. Also the 81st percentile in hard hit rate. And of course, it doesn't really come from this conventional high leverage stuff where he's throwing a high 90s. He's really not even really anywhere close to the 90s at all. Soft tosser, relies on movement. Of course, we know that patented curveball with extra spinnies, close to our old friend Seth Lugo, who would know when to drop it, of course, with massive extra drop and overall 3,000 RPMs. And then, of course, the cutter, which it seems like it's like a run fastball. I don't know what it is, but there's a lot of more spin on it, which may turn it into a cutter because of the spin it has. But you can see just the overall hovering around 4 vertical approach angle. We talk about this all the time. Very effective pitch as well. He's also added in a sweeper. He also has a sinker, which has over 12 inches of 12 inches of glove side run, which he's also been able to pair with a lot of his breaking stuff as well. And of course, like we have said, just been able to constantly manage contact fairly well and also get strikeouts, not walking pretty much anyone. You can see if you want to dazzle it a little bit more, a 1.77 earned run average as compared to some of the contact that he is getting, with a 2.23 expected ERA, 2.69 FIP, called strike and whiff percentage, basically a measurement of command and control, not giving up home runs, keeping the ball in the ballpark. Phil Maton has been a dominant force that's not really that explosive. And I asked you guys in the chat as to where, excuse me, if the Mets should move Phil Maton to the 8th inning setup role. 85% of you guys are saying yes. 15% of you guys are saying no. I'd like to know the reasoning as to why you guys wouldn't move him, because he has been the most consistent. Danel Nunez is going to be out for a while. We don't know if he's going to come back this season. Phil Maton's overall dominance, I think that this was probably the best addition pitching-wise from the trade deadline, because Jesse Winker has been really good. But Phil Maton has really been he's been really consistent, very solid since he has come here as a guy that it seems like they still slide him into middle relief, which I don't understand. But Phil Maton has been probably the most consistent piece out of this bullpen in the last month or two. What do you think about Phil Maton? Because I don't know. Would you put him in the 8th inning role? Do you think that this is just the time to just put him in there? Are you swinging it around? How do you feel about Phil Maton going into this final stretch of the season?
Um, again, like we talked about the lineup, I'm always about playing the hot hand, and yeah, since he's put on a Met uniform, he's been statistically the best reliever in the bullpen. So, it's up to play the matchups. Again, Ronnie was talking about it on the broadcast that he was better against, that he has good stuff against lefties. I'm okay with him playing that hot hand. And again, like I said, if he's playing the eighth inning, setting up to Edwin Diaz, does he have? I'll be right back for a second. I'll be right back.
Okay, well, I don't know where he was going with that, but guys, let us know what you think about Phil Maton. Ken coming in saying, you really don't have to throw 97 to be excellent. That is correct, but you also really need some really good pitch shape. M. Easy saying that is one of those barrels from his very first appearance. I think it was his second appearance that it was here, and then he did allow like another fly ball that did not leave. So he's definitely been avoiding the barrel of the bat, while also pounding the strike zone as well, not throwing as hard as he has been. But again, like this is some premier level stuff here. Extra spin, a lot of glove side movement. A fantastic not slider, excuse me, fantastic curveball that he's able to layer over with a lot of horizontally enhanced velocity. Let's just say that, because I don't know if it's prioritized as a cutter or a four seam. There's extra spin on it, so it really should be considered a cutter. But he's still been able to just overall manage contact well. Again, if he's coming from 3+ pitches, I think. Like there's one other pitch that he has that is not great. 4-pitch guy, 5-pitch guy, whether you want to call the slider or the sweeper the same thing. Again, very, very productive. Andrew, I'll let you continue as you're back on the mic.
Sure, I don't know if that was picked up, but the dog is out here crunching a plastic bottle, so I decided to kill him. Yeah. Maton, again, is not the type of reliever that we would expect in 2024. Again, the guy does not have high velocity, but again, he's spinning breaking balls, which is good to see. And a guy who can face both lefties and righties. Again, like we've made the joke about some relievers in this pen being like, oh, they only can face, left-handed or only can get righties out. The guy that can be able to get both sides out. And again, of the relievers that they added of, Stanek, Blazidabon, him, a couple of the waiver guys, like he's been the best, and it's not even close. So, and this is a guy who has postseason experience. Again, with Houston in 2021, he was like one of their, like with Stanek was their two, besides obviously Presley, was like the next guy up as the most productive reliever in their pen. So, guy who has that experience to get big outs in big games, especially going that way, for a guy that all you have to do is give up cash, it's a productive move. And again, he's gotten better. Again, he wasn't having the greatest year at Tampa Bay, and he's come over here and his pitch lights out. And again, like last night,
Are we the new Tampa Bay?
Shut the fuck up. Again, Jeremy Hefner making a pitcher better, huh? But just to be able to have that guy in high leverage, and again, it's a different look than what we would expect and probably want in our pen. But a guy that gets outs, that's all I care about. Are you giving every time you're going out there throwing up a zero? He's done that. Again, he had that kind of sketchy second outing where he gave up probably one of those barrels of homer. But besides that, he's been absolutely the most reliable, because obviously Jose Budo has faltered, and obviously Danel Nunez no longer pitching probably this year. He has to be the guy, and if he's red hot, keep playing him. He's the ace, push maybe Budo to the 7th, and then obviously with Diaz in the 9th, and you could play, spot Danny Young or whoever else, Alex Young. Now you have the two lefties, you can spot them for matchups. So overall, I think he has to be the 8th inning guy, and if he starts to falter, maybe that's a different discussion, but right now you got to just continue to play the hot hand. And is he the most, what we would want? We want 100 guys throwing gas, but hey, it's creative. It's nice to see a pitcher in today's game actually succeeding.
Yeah, you're 80 years old. Okay, but I feel like the one thing that we've also have seen is the swing and miss stuff from Phil Maton as compared to what he was getting in Tampa Bay, where it was pretty much a career low in strikeouts for him. And I think a lot of people forget with Phil Maton, he's not just a contact manager. I mean, throughout his entire career, he's got 10 strikeouts per 9 throughout his entire career, going all the way back to 2017 when he was with the Padres. He's been able to swing back to that as to kind of rounding it up, if you want to say 9.6 Ks per 9 with the Mets out of their bullpen as compared to 7.6 Ks per 9. You're starting to get these strikeouts back from him. And then also, like I said, overall in that rundown, where you're talking about, a near 29% called strike whiff percentage, which is just excellent command. And even if you don't understand where that comes from, when it comes to command, this Mets bullpen doesn't have much of it. So to get that and add that into the bullpen mid-season, bring him over to New York, he has really been a breath of fresh air as compared to what we have gotten from some of these relievers, giving up a lot of hard contact, not being able to get the ball over the plate. It's been the entire package. Now, do I agree that he should be the full-on closer if Edwin Diaz starts to struggle? No. But as one of the setup guys, if you're talking about him in the 7th or the 8th, I feel like I'm sliding that in. And I feel like I also can shift this conversation to Jose Butto as well, who has been struggling recently. I think what has really been starting to get glossed over a little bit with Jose Butto is that he walks a lot of batters. And even though he was still getting those cold, hard results when he came up out of the bullpen, has been pretty nails as well. I mean, you have a sub-3 ERA out of the bullpen. He started off as a starter this year. I think the walks are probably the things that are keeping the Mets from stretching him out as a starter. Probably the main reason as to why he came back as a reliever. He's keeping the ball in the ballpark, of course, but I feel like there is a term of vulnerability here where he's just really gotten into stretches where he's not throwing competitive pitches. And the main reason why I say that, I just don't see Jose Butto as a high leverage piece. I see Phil Maton more as a high leverage piece because he's just, again, more of the calm, collected, able to throw competitive pitches. Butto is just, he has stretches where he's just all over the place. And I don't see any possibility where I'm just like, okay, well, that's my eighth inning guy. I mean, we need guys who can throw some darts to get it to Edwin Diaz. And at some point, I don't know if Jose Butto fits into that type of equation, because like right now, he doesn't strike out enough batters to offset the walks, where he's walking about 14% of his batters that he is facing. And that's not really fluctuated as much because he's not facing as many batters out of the bullpen. So between Maton and Butto, I think that this is pretty self-explanatory as to where you can go to set up Diaz. I don't know about you. I know that you like Butto a lot more than me, but what is your possible scenario as to where do you take Butto out of the 8th inning, make him 7th inning? Do you just put him in full-on middle relief? Do you bring him back to being a 2-inning reliever or a multi-inning reliever and just keep him that way? I don't know how they set it that, because again, the walks are going to come back to bite him, and they have recently. So I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah, and this is the underachieving of both Haskell Brazaban and Ryan Stanek, because these guys were brought in to kind of be that, so you could still be able to have that ability if Butto was pitching well to pitch to high leverage, but overall wise, he could still be that multi-inning guy. But with Ryan Stanek having it looks like Mendoza has no faith in Stanek, and then obviously Brazaban, it's just like he'll get the first couple guys and hasn't been trusted to get a clean inning. It feels like. You kind of have to use him in that 7th inning. Again, like I said, if, Maton's the 8th, Diaz has the 9th, on everybody healthy, then if he's the 7th inning guy, and maybe even Danny Young, who's pitched well, I made fun of the last stream, maybe you have him in the conversation.
For what reason? Who knows? Just catching blanks for no reason.
That's the way I roll.
So weird. He's so weird, guys. I'm sorry.
But,
apologize.
Again, you could play it again. Matchups are always going to be the main thing. Is who you're facing, who's up. So that also plays into consideration. But if got to write on paper, this is the plan for the bullpen. If it's Diaz, Maton, 8-9, and then whoever's pitching well out of Butto, Reed Garrett, and Haskell, or again Ryan Stanek being just underachieving has really sucked, because he was supposed to be that kind of secondary high leverage arm. And if he was, back to what everyone thinks he can be, especially the person next to me, then you have more options to be trusted in high leverage, which he hasn't been able to get his feet completely under him, unless it's against the White Sox or like these lower end teams where like you could trust him in that high leverage spot. So right now, if you got to put gun to my head, put it on a piece of paper, it's probably Diaz, Maton, I guess Budo, Young, 10 piles of crap, Haskar Brazaban. I guess Alex Young's above the crap, and then Stanek, Ottavino.
I mean, I do think that there's still something left in Stanek. I think he's been better recently. Especially like since that blow up he had in Seattle, he's been a lot better. I'm hoping that he does get hot enough to where we could move him to the 7th or 8th inning with Maton there and then setting it up for Edwin Diaz. But overall with Phil Maton, I mean, it's definitely unconventional to see somebody as throws as soft as he does, especially from the right side, because usually you see it from the left side of these types of soft tossers. It's definitely been a breath of fresh air to kind of just see him, no nonsense, being able to give you strikes, trusting his stuff, not nibbling around the strike zone, which Ricardo has come in with Budo talking about him nibbling too much. That's a deal with everybody on this pitching staff, to be honest. I'm personally still a believer in Stanek because I feel like he's a good enough strike thrower as to where he can go after hitters and get swings and misses, which he's been able to do in these last few appearances. Hopefully he keeps it up. But at this current moment, I am more moving Phil Maton to the 8th inning because of how consistent he's been able to be. Obviously, I haven't been somebody who is really just looking to just build this completely around Edwin Diaz as to where, well, let's set him up for a save situation in the 9th, where I'm like, okay, well, right now, Edwin Diaz, like I said, the last episode that we did, talking about the usage of Edwin Diaz, the Mets need to, at this current moment, they need to use his lack of usage to their advantage right now. He's only thrown like 43 innings this season. Around this time, Edwin Diaz, I mean, he's only thrown 41 innings this season, 41 and 2/3 of an inning this season. Around this time in 2022, he was around 54. So they have cut back his workload to just maybe save situations, and he's just not going to stay as fresh. They have used him a lot these last few series. They have used him a lot. He has pitched a lot. Once in this series, he's pitched twice in the Chicago series, 3 days in a row going into that series. He's pitched a lot, and now you're starting to see him a little bit more sharper as well. Throwing 101 now, throwing 100. The slider looks crisp now because he's someone who has said multiple times that he likes to pitch a lot. He didn't come into a safe situation last night. And everyone got all, whoo, the closer comes into the 9th with a safe situation. Well, guess what? This is your $102 million reliever. So I'm hoping that they give some of the workload to Edwin Diaz as compared to, just trying to set this up and set up magic, because you're not ever going to have that situation every single time. With Phil Maton, I feel like it gives you a little bit of a safety net as well, where you can take a little bit of the pressure off of Diaz. But again, when you have that explosive closer, you have to use that bullet. And like we said multiple times, and Ken kind of reiterating it, saying, what happens if the top of the order is in the 7th inning, need your top reliever, it's not that inning. Exactly. So they need to put Diaz in that position where they can use him in any single spot. The whole construction of the bullpen, how it leads up to Diaz. What do you think about that whole thing? I'll be right back. Just give me a second.
Yeah. I mean, again, you just look at this team again, and it's still something that needs to get addressed in the offseason. But for what he's done, it is a completely different pen, because if you think about what this team was at the beginning to now, obviously Stanek being a question mark, and he's been brought over, Brazaban, Alex Young, Danny Young, there has been a lot of turnover to the pen, especially from the beginning of the year. So having Diaz back to being himself, and again, give me 75% of what last year was or 2 years ago was down the stretch, you'll feel confident, because again, you're gonna live or die by him being your best reliever, and he is the best reliever in your pen. So if he's back to throwing 101 with the slider, back to being a razor blade helps. Again, you have made, like, again, there is stuff, there's good pitchers out there. It's just, and you saw it in this series where you can get consistent, production out of them. Again, for me, going in with this bullpen, matchups are always the main thing. Definitely time of the game matters. If Diaz says he wants to work more, we'll have him work 2 out of 3 games every series. Then if that's what's going to keep him sharp and bring that velocity and consistently keep that velocity. And again, you have pieces. Again, Reed Garrett still scares the shit out of us when he comes in. Again, the Adam Ottavino just completely being left out of this pen. Thank the Lord that Mendoza has said, you know what, enough's enough. You're only pitching in blowouts or are the rare exception. We're getting our asses blown. Then you can come in. But again, there is a conglomerate of guys in this pen that I trust. And again, is it the greatest bullpen ever? No. But can it get the job done? It's shown that. Will there be games they blow? Every bullpen blows games. So I'm not going to be, my thing is keep it to a minimum. If you're going to be, hopefully it's less than once a week. Once every 2 weeks would be great. But again, they're going to blow games. It's how bullpens are. They're finicky. They're up and down. And, is there still good stuff out there? Of course. And hey, maybe there's a miracle that potentially we get 2 nasty starters that can come out at the end of the season that could take a couple spots. But again, that's still to be determined.
I mean, who knows with that type of construction what it's going to look like, because neither of them have made rehab assignments. Neither of them have done that yet.
And I doubt they will, because the minor league season's almost over. I don't think they'll be down in Florida. They'll probably do bullpens and sim games down there, but there's not many games left. In Double-A, there's less than a week, and then the playoffs start. There's not a lot of minor league games left.
Was Senga gonna simulate a playoff thing in the AAA or something?
Shut up.
Something like that. But I think that they have been able to string this thing together. They did a really good job with that, backing up Tyler McGill last night. You're probably not going to get as many double play balls as you did in those certain situations, but they've been able to play the matchups correctly. Again, I want them to use Edwin Diaz a lot more than they have been. It's time for the coddling to stop with September, and then also use Phil Maton a lot more in September. And I really want to see them kind of utilize this in a way as to where they can set this thing up for the playoffs, because we don't really know what the certain thing is. We all know that Edwin Diaz comes into the ninth regularly because he's the best reliever. Of course, that's the final guy to come out. But if they have a situation where they need to bring Diaz in, bring Diaz in. Use him as the $102 million closer that you paid him to be. Use him as the $102 million reliever that you paid him to be. I get it. He's coming back from an injury, but it's September now. It's been a while. It's been more than a year since that injury. So it's time to release the handcuffs a little bit and bring out your best bullet. They've been bringing out their best bullet a lot more, and he looks a lot sharper. Who would have fucking thought? A guy who only needs 1 inning to perform, pitching him more, he gets sharper. What a shock. But overall, Phil Maton has also been very dominant in the back end of that bullpen. And again, it is tough. It's Ken saying here, it's a shame what happened to Nunez. That would have been great. Phil Maton probably would have been the automatic 7 guy. And then maybe you could have stretched out Jose Budo as well. But, Danel Nunez, we'll see what happens for the rest of the year. I don't think he's going to come back for the rest of the season, but I don't know how they're gonna construct this thing. And hopefully Phil Maton is put into a more reliable role. With Phil Maton here, I don't want to see Garrett be designated to the 8th inning role. If Phil Maton is available, they got to give it to Phil Maton. Use your best bullets in crunch time, and maybe it'll put you in an uncomfortable position at once, but it happens. But at the end of the day, one move can really determine any single game, and they made the right moves last night. But utilizing this bullpen is one of the main reasons as to if the Mets do succeed or not. I just feel like the overall freshness of Edwin Diaz is really important, and it goes for a lot of the other guys in the bullpen too. Now, speaking of this state of the team, the state of the bullpen, the state of everything, we did get some comments from David Stearns that I want to add in here, and just some main takeaways that we can take from that one. The boss man did speak once again, basically talking about the current state of the New York Mets, about the career year that Lindor is having, and what an MVP looks like from the horse's mouth himself, saying, "I think that it looks like the guy who runs out at shortstop every day at 7 o'clock." We're getting to a point where we're talking about perhaps the greatest individual position player in a season in the history of this franchise. We also got another piece of information regarding Francisco Alvarez, who's really been struggling since coming back from injury. He talked about saying that given the success that Alvarez had in his first season in the big leagues and at periods this year, it's easy to forget how young this player is and how much we have asked of him as an organization. We also got some comments about the Mets' just overall playoff wildcard race and the state of the team. Stearns went on to say, "This should be normal for us. When we get to September, we should be in the thick of the playoff hunt. Our responsibility now is to put our players and our coaches in the best possible position to succeed. We've earned the right to be here. We've played well enough to be here. This isn't a fluke." So we got a little bit of a grasp on how David Stearns feels about this team. Obviously, you can feel really good to be in the playoff hunt, of course. What he said about Lindor, it was pretty much has been being said throughout. Francisco Alvarez's struggles, talking about that. He also talked about some other stuff regarding his GM search as well. We'll see how he manages that throughout the offseason. And then there's just the full-on position of the team. Any takeaways that you have from any of those comments from David Stearns going into this September playoff race, which, like we've said towards the end, is going to be a gauntlet for this team?
Yeah, I mean, the Lindor comments is just kind of it's just kind of blank space, white noise. Oh, sure, again, it's true. He's gonna, go down in one of the best offensive seasons. But again, that's kind of what everyone's saying. Did I need to hear specifically him? No. The playoff comment is encouraging, but again, we said this, but kind of Epler, like, and it should be. This shouldn't be new. Like, this should be now with him coming in the playoffs every September in a playoff hunt. So, like, I like that he said it, but also, again, hopefully that is true. That's up to you, Dumpster Dave, to make that a reality every year, that this team consistently in the playoffs. So, again, it's good to see. The Alvarez thing, again, like you said, he's 21. Like, and I get, and this is the problem with the, just in baseball, I guess kind of from, like, the Mets side perspective, like, not being able to develop prospects. Because you look all around the league, if it was Jackson Churia, if it's Junior, if it was J-Rod his first year, like Adley the first year, like, you're seeing guys at 20, 21, 19 years old coming in and lighting the world on fire. And Alvarez had a good rookie year, but then you're seeing the slumps and you've seen with guys, it takes time to develop. Like, and I get it that, everyone wants it right now. And, like, it takes time. Like, guys are going to, the book gets around. Now he needs to adjust next year. So, a lot of it's true. Again, he's 21. He's had, one full year. Obviously, he's had injuries mixed in between those years. So, and again, like I said, I still think that injuries lingering throughout his swing and throughout, the rest of the year. So, again, if this is a wash, whatever, he come back hopefully right in completely healthy next year. But again, like, there's not much to be like, ooh, it's just like some crazy comments. Again, it's a lot of the more, okay, yeah, as it should be comments. But again, with Stearns, it's just kind of, like, he was right. Like, again, a lot of people gave him shit, including myself, and thinking this team was, like, ass. They've overperformed. Shut up, Tyler McGill, dick sucker. So, again, you got to give him the trust and faith. Again, he hasn't gotten to the Leon Rose level of trust yet, but it's building that way. But, again, to see how this team performs, we've seen it hundreds of times with this team, where September comes and you got to play the best ball. Like, they've been statistically, record-wise, the best team in baseball since June 1st. Can they keep that going? They've kept it going, obviously, the first week of September. But again, they playing some they played good against good teams. I'm not saying they haven't. Seattle being that one outlier series that they couldn't hit the Mariners, which most teams don't. But then giving up runs to Seattle offensively, that was concerning. But besides that, since June 1st, every series like there hasn't been a I want to punch this team. There have been moments again that you're like the season's over, but they have bounced back every time very well. So can they keep it going? They got again another below level team coming up, but again, can they keep it going? And can David Stearns, not just the rest of this year, but going forward, continue to hit on these dumpster deals, but also start spending daddy's credit card for the big numbers?
No. But no, regarding of what David Stearns said, I mean, most of it is pretty straightforward, but I am wondering as to what he's talking about, saying like this is no fluke, this is this is that, which is true because there is a lot of, the way that you can project it in the way with a lot of guys in this lineup, they have been a lot more sustainable as compared to some more other years that they had, such as 2022, which they weren't going to keep that up whatsoever. I am curious to see what pieces he considers an actual fluke, what guys he considers as pieces that he wants to go forward with. Because I feel like he's talking about as a group, this is not a fluke. This is a legitimate playoff team, which I think we all can believe is a playoff contender. They're in the middle of this race right now. They've played great baseball as a team overall. Led by Francisco Lindor, who has been phenomenal since going into the leadoff spot. But I am curious to see which pieces he believes can continue this. And I feel like the overall trends of what's going to keep up, what is going to sustain throughout the next year and the next year after that, we'll see what he does. Because there are a lot of pending free agents going out and testing free agency after this season. So we'll see what he does with that. In regards to Francisco Alvarez, I mean, yes, he is very young. But of course, like the direction that he is going in has been really, it has been concerning. Let's just say that. It has been a very big concern for me to just see him like step back from being the 25 home run bat that he was. Again, he has been hurt. He's been banged up. It's been a really rough season for him. It looks like a lost season, but if you're going to have a lost season, you might as well have it as a 22-year-old and not like 25, 26, 27. Hopefully, when he gets into that prime of his career, he's a more complete player because there's still things he needs to work on, obviously. But he is so young. And again, we'll see what happens. I'm not giving up on him yet, but it's been rough. Let's just say that. And then everything that we heard from the Francisco Lindor standpoint, like I said, we have heard this throughout the entire Mets universe. Now everybody loves Lindor, right? Everybody wanted him dead in the first two months and wanted his head on a stick. But when we talk about from what he has been as the impact of this team, I think everybody is realizing how important he has been to this lineup and how him just basically carrying the team the way he is compared to some other guys carrying the team the way that they were, it's a lot more impactful of how Lindor can do it from all five tools. So I feel like that's something that's been put on display. And I feel like that is something that is really, really important to this team, putting this guy and elevating this guy as a leader. Now, here's a question that has absolutely no substance to it whatsoever because it doesn't really matter. Is there a possibility where David Stearns looks at this and he's like, with his comments of Lindor, seeing the impact, is this where he, forces David Wright to pass the baton to him as the captain? Is there a possibility that he, they do name him captain of this team? Because that has been a discussion that's been brought up a lot in Mets media. Does it matter? No, it doesn't. But as that full-on title, as the leader, they've had players call him the captain many times before. Is that the point where they start investing into Lindor as the full-on leader of this team, even though he's already been paid $341 million? Do you think that there's a way that gets directed to him where he's full on established as the leader, or does this just like it just doesn't even make any sense to just a label is a label?
Yeah, I'm sick of this because it's only really in New York you have this conversation. Yes, Salvi in Kansas City wears the actual C, but I think he's the only actual guy in Major League Baseball that has a C on their jersey. I am sick of this. If they're already telling you he's the captain, the players are saying it, the front office is saying it, manager's saying it. Why the hell do we need a stupid C on his jersey? If he is in the clubhouse, that's all that
do they
matters.
Put C's in baseball? I know they put C's in hockey.
Salvi has one. I think Salvi's the only guy in baseball that has a C on his jersey. Judge doesn't.
Wow.
Judge was named captain. Does he have a
so
C?
egotistical.
No.
Jeez.
Salvi's the only guy I've seen in Major League Baseball was legally named the captain who has a C on their jersey. I don't believe in this shit. Like, I think it's
self-absorbed.
Stupid.
That is insane.
I think it's so stupid. Like, all it matters is if he's the leader of that clubhouse and the captain of that clubhouse, and they respect him, they listen to him. That's all I give a shit about. Like Jalen Brunson being named captain of the Knicks he's the best player. Who gives a shit? Lance Thomas was a captain. Did anyone give a shit when Lance Thomas was the captain of the Knicks? Like, enough. It's a stupid
nobody gave
letter.
a shit about the Knicks at that point. Like,
well, exactly.
Like, nobody cared about the team.
It does. Yeah. It's more stupid shit for marketing and more for, like, again, merchandising. It makes more sense. You can make captain merchant. I get it. But if the players respect him, everyone else respects him and sees him as the captain already, why do we need... I get it. People are going to talk about it, and it's cool. It's like, oh, he's the captain. Ooh. For me, I don't give a shit. Like, if the players view him as that in that locker room, that's all that matters. Like, the fans can call him that, sure, whatever. It doesn't matter. If every part of this team and organization already sees and values him as that, that's good enough for me. If they want to, have the T-shirts and, have all that crap and be, name him the captain, even though it's really only New York and New York teams that have, obviously exceeding hockey and football, that actually have captains. But it's only in the New York cities where basketball and baseball where they have to have a captain. Like, the best player is the best player, and if he's the leader of this team and in that locker room loves and respects him and listens to him, that's all that matters about the captaincy, in my opinion.
Yeah, of course. And I think that the overall leadership is something that has already been established since like his second year here. Because again, we've talked about the first year being a little bit rough as it was. We don't have to talk about that, of course. But I mean, at some point, you hope that maybe they do make it official because he's going to be here for a while. You might as well slap it on him. But if he gets turned into the captain and automatically goes to shit, we're going to call it the captain curse. So you never know what is going to happen there. But again, I'm definitely, even though he has had a big hand in it, I'm glad to see David Stearns as confident as he is in this team, as to where a lot of the internal core, he inherited. And he seems a lot, more confident in a lot of these pieces. And some of the guys that he's brought in as well, some have hit, some have missed. And I think that there's been a lot of turnover in the roster. There's going to be more turnover in the front office as well. And we're going to see what happens in 2025 going into that offseason of how confident he actually is in this team being a sustainable winner. But to hear it from him, from a team that has had a lot of pieces that he's inherited, it's definitely encouraging to see that. And hopefully he continues to elevate that way. Maybe he goes into free agency and he does it. Maybe he makes a few trades. Who knows? But right now, the Mets have continued to be a consistent winner throughout the entire second half of this season. They're in the wild card race. They're a half game out, which is crazy to think about, which considering how they started it off in the first 2 months. And it's good to see that you have your president of baseball operations vocally behind you. And we haven't really seen that from a lot of our general managers and executives. Let's not forget, I mean, there were a lot of times when a lot of they're like, oh, well, I don't know. David Stearns says this stuff with his chest. I mean, he gives you the full straightforward. And I personally, again, I don't think he has lied to a Mets fan once since he has taken over. He just hasn't. He has not lied to a Mets fan. When has he lied? He's talked about.
Did I say anything? I'm just
Hey,
sitting here right now.
What has he lied? I mean, what you want to put out you want to put the troll goggles on? Go ahead. Put the
What are
troll
you talking?
goggles
I
on.
have not put anything. I'm just.
He's
sitting
talked
here
about there
writing.
being growing pains. He has talked about there being consistency issues. He has talked about giving the young players a leash to play.
I do have that one troll in the chamber, but I won't.
He's talked about the full-on bullpen turnover. He's talked about, adding guys during the season. That's what he's done. He's done a good job with it. Have we had some struggles? Yes. But that all just really comes from this franchise being its franchise. Nothing to really do with David Stearns. Studs and duds, let's get into it. I keep forgetting to do it right after the series recap. I'm never going to learn.
Stupid.
One guy in this series who has been really, really good. One guy who's not been good, and we want to call out a little bit. Andrew, I'll start with you. Who's your stud of this series?
I mean, it's easy. When you have an ace, and he goes out there and dominates again and again, and lowering his ERA to sub 2.8, he's got to be the GOAT himself, David Peterson. That dude legitimately is pitching game one of a playoff series if we get into the wild card round. And imagine saying that 3 years ago. So give David Peterson all the props. He's the best pitcher in baseball. Hell, you know what? He's getting himself in a Cy Young conversation. Fuck around and find out. Let's go. David Peterson.
Yeah. With the 90 innings he has. That makes sense. Okay.
Hey, seems to the conversation, would it?
It's shut the fuck up. Like, do you ever stop talking? Like,
Never.
Really? Francisco Lindor, easy. I mean, I feel like we're filling in the blanks every single day of these studs and everything, but Francisco Lindor, just an overall outstanding performances again, like we said, 33 straight games of getting on base. I don't know what the record is for the on-base streak. Is it Ted Williams, 80-something?
I think it's Ted something at
86, something like that. He's not going to break it this year, but I mean, he's just been overall consistent ever since moving into that leadoff spot, like we have said. The 30-30 is going to come this year. Already hit 30 home runs in the first week of September, which is maybe a little bit insulting to another power piece that we have in this lineup as to where he's fighting for the team lead in home runs with Francisco Lindor. But you know what? It's fine, whatever. But, I mean, overall, what else can you say about Francisco Lindor? Let's just say it was quite a moment last night when you had Citi Field singing along to My Girl later on in the game. I mean, Jesus Christ. I mean, they have really embraced this Lindor to MVP. And it's crazy to think about, especially with the position they used to be in, where Francisco Lindor probably was like the biggest criminal known to man on the face of the earth with how much he was getting paid. But it's crazy to think about of how, playing well, winning, heals all or whatever. Lindor's doing it all. He is carrying this team on his back. He's had help from Vientos, but from all aspects, Lindor is carrying this entire team on his back right now. And they're going to need it throughout September for them to continue to succeed like they are. Get to duds. Who do you want to throw under the bus here?
For me, it's very easy. And like I love you said, the guy he's carrying in the offense, the guy who was supposed to, and everyone was terrified he's going to have the Aaron Judge walk here. Pete Alonso. Like, I get it. He still have overall. We look at the basic counting stats.
But he cares. He snapped the bat in half.
Yeah, he snaps the bat. That's more, more productive ABs he had. Because, of course, bases loaded top first, nobody out. Pete Alonso strikes out. Of course, who's got to pick him up? My man, Jesse Winke. Again, the strikeouts, he's not hitting with risk. Yes, he homered in garbage time. What's more than I made the joke. I literally called, here's the homer, mess up by 3-4 runs in the 8th inning. Here's the garbage time homer, and then boom, there it is. I am I've made since the start of this show, I've never been a fan of Pete Alonso. And the fact that now everyone is now on my side, what I've been saying for 4 years now, it is kind of funny. But again, he's got to get his shit together. Like, as much and as great as Lindor needs help. And especially with this inconsistency of this lineup, it would be fucking great for our supposed polar bear to get out of his goddamn hibernation.
Yeah, that would be nice. I mean, since the All-Star break, he's been productive. but we're still not getting the production that we need. We need him to be there when we need him to be there. He just hasn't been. I mean, that's pretty much the best way to describe it. It's not hate or being haters or being, this awful, he's this awful person that we want gone. He needs to show up. He needs to show up when it matters, and he just still has not been doing that, and he's going to be in the dud category if that continues to happen. I think it goes pretty self-explanatory of who I'm going to pick here for my dud, because I talked about him earlier. It's a really tough series for Brandon Nimmo. Even though he did drive in that one run, he still was getting on base. Defensively, he did not look good out there in center field. Let's just say that. We also just have the concerns of where he's just been slumping at the plate. But like I've said, bring him down in the lineup. That would be nice to try and get that consistency. I don't think it's really going to take much for him to get back out there and back on the horse. But at some point, they're going to have to cut the cord. They're probably, at one point, they're going to just have to try something different out, because him in the 2-hole behind such productive hitters, the timely hitting, it's been one of the reasons why the Mets have struggled with runners in scoring position. Your dud is probably the reason, one of the big reasons, but let's not forget Brandon Nimmo has also struggled as well, and has been one of the main reasons as to why this team has not been consistent in general. Whoops. I don't know why that popped up there. But anyways, let's get into our injury report. We hinted most of it here. Kodai Senga threw 25 pitches off the mound on Wednesday with increased intensity, and he is beginning to shift his focus from leg rehab to arm conditioning. So we're still monitoring that timeline. Is it possible he comes back as a starter or reliever? We don't know. And he will throw another bullpen later on this week. Paul Blackburn completed his rehab assignment in AAA Syracuse on Tuesday night. Threw 75 pitches, 4 strikeouts, 1 walk, 1 earned run, 4 hits in 6 2/3. He is expected to rejoin the Mets rotation against Toronto at some point during that 3-game set. Sean Reed-Foley, we just got a little bit of an update on him regarding where he is, so he's most likely not going to throw for the rest of the season. He's on the 60-day IL, so he has begun throwing from flat ground. He is not close to throwing off the mound, so most likely he is done for the season. The injury-riddled Sean Reed-Foley continues to have injury issues. Not great, not a great look. Let's just say that. I think Andrew is frozen regarding his camera. I don't know if he'll get his connection back. But let's preview the next series coming up against the Cincinnati Reds. Game 1, Jose Quintana will face off against Brandon Williamson, young pitcher who has not thrown, he's only thrown like 3 innings. That will be at 7:10 Eastern time tomorrow. These games are at Citi Field, of course, because they visited Cincinnati. Jacob Junis, a guy the Mets have been actually attached to before during the offseason and on the waiver wires, will face off against Sean Manaea in Game 2. Manaea looking to continue his great campaign that he's been having since the beginning of June. That will be at 4:10 Eastern time. And then Game 3, Luis Severino will take the mound against Julian Aguilar. I don't know if I said that correctly. Let me know. That will be the day game matinee on the 8th, which will be on Sunday. Luis Severino looking to follow up his great 7-inning performance against Boston. Going into this series, this is a Cincinnati Reds team that is not very competitive at all. They are kind of hovering around this wild card race. Looks like they're pretty much out of it. He's going into this series. I don't know if you're here, Andrew. You're frozen on my end, but I don't know if you're still here. He might have to reconnect. But he is going into this series. Let's just say, I hope that we get a little bit more of offensive consistency. You know, I'd love the crooked numbers that they put up offensively. But the problem is that we're just still wasting a lot of opportunities, especially with guys in runners in scoring position. And again, it continues to be the main culprits. The Nimos and Pete Alonso have not been great. Um, and, we'll see if they actually can contribute to that. They have flip flop Manaya and Quintana. Manaya starts tomorrow. Okay, so thank you for that. So Manaya goes game 1. Quintana starts game 2. My bad. So we'll just plug that in a little bit. We'll switch that around. So Manaya gets game 1. Jose Quintana gets game 2, and then Luis Severino for game 3. So scratch that, swap those two. Seems like putting Manaya in that position to pitch a little bit more, especially with the off day. Makes sense. Riding the hot hand, getting the wins, continuing to stack up series. Good decision. I support that. I did not catch that, so thank you for that reminder. But again, the runners in scoring position, it still just needs to be a lot more consistent as compared to what we have been seeing. Even though the offense has been enough to carry them to back-to-back sweeps, you just never know when it's going to go cold. They love scoring in bunches. We've seen a lot of inconsistency. Hopefully the bullpen can hold up. We get some length from the starting rotation. We've talked about pretty much all of these factors in once again. We'll see what they're going to be able to do against Jacob Junis. I feel like that is going to be the key matchup going into it with Jose Quintana. Flip this, of course, like we said. Jose Quintana versus Jacob Junis. Jacob Junis has some great stuff. I really feel like that's somebody that nobody really talks about. He's a really solid arm. And hopefully the Mets can break through against him. And then on the other side, you have Jose Quintana, who knows if he's going to give you any length. But at one point, hopefully he can break through against a Cincinnati Reds team who I don't think has been good offensively. Andrew's still trying to figure out his connection issues right now. But guys, let us know what you think about this upcoming Mets versus Reds series. We went from the White Sox to the Red Sox, and now we're taking the red from the Sox and facing the Reds. So that's kind of some chain link replay there. I think, Andrew, good? You good?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm back. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Welcome back. Mets versus Reds. Keys that you have to success for this series. What do you think?
Well, you don't get low to low. You're not getting Green. So again, you're getting the back half of the rotation. Again, two guys who most people have never heard of in Williamson, and I don't even know who the other guy in Game 3 is. Jacob Junis, who's been around the league for a while, and Brandon Williamson, who's been in the Luis Castillo trade. So again, you're facing the lower end of their rotation. You got to deal with, of course, Ellie De La Cruz, who's, again, one of the best players in baseball, most exciting players in baseball. He gets on, he's going to steal second and third, and then he's always in scoring position whenever he's on there. The raging hot Ty France is coming off a 9-hit series, 3 hits in each of the last 3 games for Ty France, who's coming over from Seattle, which, didn't expect to see that on my bingo card in 2024. Their bullpen isn't great. They got rid of Lucas Sims. They still obviously have Alexis Diaz. There's a couple of guys out there who are decent, but overall they're not the greatest group of pen. So again, you're facing the back half of the rotation. Get into their bullpen. That could be a recipe to success. They obviously have a lot of young hitters. Jonathan India is still there, who's kind of a low key Met killer in an illicit extent. Noelvi Marte is still there. Obviously, like I said, Ty France is red hot. So you got to really, again, a worse team than you are. So you should be able, especially with the rotation lined up, you're in a situation where you should sweep. But again, you got Jose Quintana pitching Game 1, which is always a net negative. So, and they did just come off sweeping the Houston Astros. So again, a dangerous team when, again, teams who are the worst to face where they have nothing to do, which I kind of like that the Mets don't have, after this, really don't have a trap series besides the Blue Jays. The rest of the way, it's playoff contenders of teams that are fighting for something and that are on the equal level of stress where the Mets are, compared to teams like the Reds and the Blue Jays, where just, finally come, it doesn't really matter if we win or lose. It's all about having fun and not having those stressful trap series. So, again, on paper, you should sweep this series, but again, they're coming off red hot. They got a really solid offense, and again, you're missing Hunter Green, you're missing Lodolo, so you have Manai and Severino, so you should at least Oh, he's still up there with the Nationals. Oh, great, Dylan Cruz, revenge, great. But again, mostly they're facing great teams, which is good because again you have equal level of stress and entertaining, and we all enjoy stressful baseball. So overall, with this Red Series, this should be a winnable series, especially when I had Severino going games 2 and 3. You expect it. But again, can they get maybe to a 10-game winning streak? And maybe, hopefully, by the end of this series, maybe you're in a playoff spot. Who the hell knows? But again, you on paper you should win. Obviously, they have good players. You have good players. This isn't like a crazy. This isn't like a national series, the Blue Jays, where like they're ass. But again, they're a solid team. But again, you should win. You have the MVP. Keep rolling.
Yeah, of course. I do wonder, there is one point of emphasis I wonder if they do with Ellie De La Cruz being the stolen base threat that he is. Maybe Torrens gets 2 out of the 3 starts as compared to Alvarez, maybe, because Torrens has been incredible at throwing out runners. We know that he's been serviceable offensively. That's pretty much the best that you can get from a backup catcher, which is good compared to what we have had in backup catchers. I'm worried to see, not worried. I'm wondering to see what they actually do with that, because Ellie De La Cruz, we already know how big of a catalyst he can be offensively, just getting on base strictly. And then, of course, we already know that he can perform with his bat as well. So we'll see what they do with that. I am curious to see, again, how this lineup is formed. I hope that, again, they move Nimmo down. That is something they got to look forward to. I feel like, just to get him going. JD Martinez gets added back into the lineup as well, coming back from paternity leave. DJ Stewart got optioned down. And, hopefully they can come out with a series win. Maybe they keep the win streak going and win 10 straight against Cincinnati. But overall, hopefully they can be in a playoff spot the next time that we go live. That would be awesome. Would that be cool? Just one combination to go our way with the Braves. That'd be awesome. But other than that, I think we're going to wrap these things up here. Andrew, any last words, any parting words that you have going into this next series with the Reds? What do you think? What's on your mind? Actually, don't tell me what's on your mind. I don't want to hear it.
Well, obviously it's football season, so now baseball doesn't matter because football season does tonight. But yeah, again, you got a series. Hopefully, maybe the Rockies can bullshit their way to a win tonight. That we go into this series in a playoff spot. But I ain't putting money on that. But again, we're also big Canadian fans this weekend. Obviously, the Braves are going playing the Blue Jays, so hopefully a Vlad Guerrero Jr. specialty, 6-homer series would be great. And Dalton Varsho. And speaking of Dalton Varsho, which is on my mind, you said you gave me an open mic. Nothing I'll say before after the stream. But go Blue Jays. And obviously, go pound the Reds. You like pounding all the red and white things. So keep it going, Mets.
Oh, okay. I just got it. All right. Yep. So
It took you that
we're all
fucking long.
we're all just scoreboard. I'm sorry. We're all scoreboard watching today. The Mets are off today. A well-deserved off day after winning 7 in a row. So hopefully the Rockies can come up and scratch a win out, because then we would be tied for that last wild card spot going into a series with Cincinnati, as well as football starting. So for those of you who are football fans, Chiefs and Ravens playing tonight for Thursday Night Football. So there's still tons out there, even with a Mets off day, that you can go watch. And then we're back at it again tomorrow against Cincinnati at 7 o'clock with the Mets winners of 7 straight, red hot right now, and hopefully making their move into the playoff spot, because remember, we've seen them get close before, and then when they get to that last step to make their move, we've seen them falter before. So it's time to make that last move. You're a half game out, and then, of course, these big series coming out towards the end of the season. Thank you guys so much for watching, listening. For those of you who popped in for the entire show, for those of you who popped in a little bit and who just full-on tuned in live, for those of you watching on playback, make sure to subscribe to the Mets Weekly channel if you have not already. Turn on post notifications for this very podcast, which is now regularly recorded on Sundays and Thursdays, following every single series of games, as well as the audio versions that drop at 9 a.m. the following day that these are recorded. Make sure to follow Mets Weekly on TikTok, on X. Follow everyone individually, including our third co-host, Frank, who is not here today. Let's go Mets, everyone. The playoff push is here into September baseball. We'll see you guys next time.